If that's all we need to get done, then we might get started. So good evening. Thank you for coming along to the April meeting of the Gungahlin Community Council. Right, the sign-in sheets are here. We do have a Facebook video feed, so that if anybody has a problem with that, they perhaps might want to be careful about what they say or do. But otherwise, we will press on with the agenda. We've got an update from Gary Rake from ESPDD on the Town Centre refresh, an update on roads, and in particular some details on how road planning is done. And then we've got an update, hopefully, from Richard at Purdon's about a mixed-use community development in the town centre. I can't see Richard or any Christy from Purdon's here. Without further ado, we'll get it started with Gary. He's just going to talk a little about the break microphone here at the thing.
Okay. Do you want to put the lapel one on? Will that make it easier? What about if I break your lapel microphone? That would not be good. Okay, good evening all. Good evening viewers at home on Facebook. I just wanted to give you a quick update on the consultation to date on the Gungahlin Precinct Plan refresh, and in particular the survey that we've been undertaking, and just give you a bit of a sense of what some of the themes are that are coming through and a little bit about the demographics. I haven't put it on a presentation because the survey isn't closed yet. The survey closes tomorrow, so anyone who hasn't yet filled it in, please go to yoursay.act.gov.au and fill the survey in. Really important that we get that. Once the survey closes, we'll do some more quality control, testing the authenticity of the responses that we've received, make sure that it all looks above board, then we'll finalise the results and kick them out. So to give you a little bit of information about the demographics that we're seeing come through, and that's quite an interesting one for us. We've got a good gender split. We're seeing about 46% of respondents are male, 53% female. So in some other areas, we would see a skewing towards male responses rather than female. So here we've got a slightly stronger female response rate. Sits more reasonably reflective of what we know the population to be. So it gives us a better sense that we are hearing a reasonable sample. One of the biggest problems for us in any sort of planning survey is finding the missing voices, finding the people who don't have a strong view to put, but their voice still counts. We know that those who have a strong view will always find a way to be heard. So we're quite interested in the demographics. The age split. On this one, we're seeing a little bit under 50%, 47.5% in the 20 to 39 age group. Again, feels reasonable for what we know of the Gungahlin population. And then the 40 to 59 age group is the next largest at about 36%. Again, if I took that to some of the inner south suburbs, we'd see a big skew of ages above 60. We then get a little bit of information about household composition. And very close to half of our respondees, about 48.5%, are couples with children. So we're seeing families represented in the survey. Couples without children are the next most prominent at about 26%. So something like 3/4 of the survey are couples with or without kids. And then the final bit of demographic that I'll share with you, I won't run through it all, is information on how often people are using the town centre in particular. And don't scroll away from that. We're getting reports, people are identifying about 52% of respondees are saying it's at least once or twice a week, and about 37% are saying daily. So we're getting feedback from people who say they interact a lot with the town centre. Then we get into the information, what's coming through. As you know, we're talking about three key themes: building height and quality, public space, public realm, and transport. Within transport, the surveys are telling us that 80% of people who come into the town centre drive, and so they're really emphasising the importance of making sure that vehicle movement within the formal town centre stays high in our thinking, that it's not about walking or riding from home. There's a really strong theme coming through on the quality of buildings. Commentary being made about buildings that are put up too quickly don't add anything to the quality of the place, and that may have questionable durability over time. So they're talking a lot about high quality design and high quality construction. And then in public spaces, there's support for more green spaces, and that comes through particularly strongly in the younger demographics that are responding to the survey. So younger people are looking for more deliberate planning of green spaces in the town centre, as well as the actual development and maintenance of them. Looking at the number of people that have participated, we've received 830 survey responses as of a few hours ago. In our early quality assurance, there has been some duplication in those, and we think that as many as 200 of those could be duplicate entries. We can trace IP addresses and clean that up a bit. We will only recognise each IP address once. We need to validate the survey. So the next couple of stats I'll give you haven't yet had that clean up. Taller buildings are showing not far shy of an 80% support rate, off a base of 258 votes. So of the 830 survey responses, only 258 voted on that particular question. That stat will change again once we clean out the duplicates. Correct. Yep. So at the moment, of 830 survey responses, only 258 put a vote against the question, do you think marker buildings 24 to 27 stories could be appropriate in the town centre? They may have responded to some of the other height questions. We had a graphic representation where we showed buildings of a few different heights and asked people to rate which ones they preferred. I haven't brought those stats with me together, so they may have done some of the questions but not all. And on the question, is there enough green space in the town centre? By coincidence, the ratios are perfectly reversed. 22% said yes, there are, and 78% said no, there's not. Only 152 votes out of 830 survey responses, only 152 voted on that question. But it is quite, again, running quite strong in favour of more green space. And look, the final thing I'd give you an update on, we did something a little bit unusual last week. We had one of our staff come out and do a live Facebook feed from within the town centre, just trying to walk around and talk to a few people. We kicked it out, not really sure what sort of response we'd get. Facebook, with its algorithms, pumped that out to about 12,000 people, and nearly 5,000 of them actually clicked on the button to properly view it. I don't think we've had anything else that's received 5,000 active views other than maybe a picture of a cuddly bettong or a quoll, or us sharing a video of a mountain bike trail. They're about the only things that have gone more popular than that. Again, it tells us that that's something that we can use more actively in the future. We've spoken to people walking around the area. We've engaged with young people through facilitated workshops at the college, social media out to youth organisations, and we've got an invite-only workshop in a couple of weeks' time to draw in representative groups and make sure that key stakeholders are speaking on behalf of their constituent groups. So we'll have hit individuals formally, informally, in 5 seconds, 5 minutes, all age groups, and then we'll put that quality assurance across at the end to make sure that we don't accidentally count anyone's voice twice. And then once we've got final results, I'll come back and talk to you again. Any questions at this point?
When will the results be drawn?
It depends how long my team take to type. Oh, sorry, for actual planning outcome.
Well, even just the results of the survey.
Survey results, yeah. Well, so survey results, I think that's days or single-digit weeks. It won't take us months to come up with that. We'll go through and do our clean-up. Given a couple of short weeks, probably a fortnight away. So I'd expect to be able to come back to your next meeting to give you the survey results. Because we've got the workshop coming up, we won't start turning that into draft planning outcomes until we've heard from the workshop, and then we'll crank that out. But again, weeks and single-digit months, not 6 and 12 months for this. We don't have time. We're still getting development applications. We need to keep moving on this. Yeah?
In terms of weight in the survey came at the beginning?
Reasonable weight, but it's none of this is decisive. There's judgment in all of it. So I often talk in consultation processes. 1,000 voices that just give us the word no don't really give us a useful, coherent argument. One single submission that's got the killer knockout argument against a proposal can stop it dead in its tracks. So we'll be looking as much at the comments that come within the survey as the single vote. If the theme in the comments and the quantum in the vote align, so if people were saying, we really love tall buildings, but we only love them in this spot, we'd say, all right, maybe there's an alignment there. Or if they said, we really hate tall buildings, and the comments said, we're worried about bulk and scale and overshadow or wind effects, we'd say, okay, that feels like a coherent and decisive viewpoint.
The Community Council provided a response which was
Yep.
of the people using at the very least.
Yeah.
Does that get, because it will be more reason than just tick a box?
Yep, correct, yep. So it gets...
So that would be giving more weight.
It gets pretty solid weight. Similarly, if we had a submission from any of the professional design associations, the Institute of Architects or the Planning Institute, those would get reasonably solid weight if they appeared to be a tailored, well-considered piece of work. If it was a cookie-cutter submission on Master Plans 101, well, we'd probably park that as a simple submission. And again, the views that we hear in the workshop, if we're able to sit and talk through an issue and tease out second and third order effects, we give that greater weight than what we might get in a simple survey as well. Yeah, it's all pretty subjective. Ultimately, we'd then work it up into a draft proposal that'll be a map with travel connections, future development sites, indicative future building heights, put that out for consultation, and that's then an opportunity to talk about what this looks like at the start of a framework. We'd then deal with submissions and views, finalise a master plan, then we'd codify that, put it into a draft territory plan variation, kick that back out for views. So along the way we're saying, well, tell us what you want to tell us, and we'll come back with a master plan. This is what we think we heard. When we finalise that, we say, this is how we think we'll turn what you told us, what we heard, into a set of rules. Do you think this will work? They're the 3 points along the way. Yeah.
Are you limiting the footprint of the current survey,
We,
particularly in relation to green spaces, or would we consider going up down Clark Avenue and new developmental areas, because it's rather misleading to ask people to comment on the availability of green space at the moment.
Sure. The precinct refresh does have a boundary, and that's marked out in the map. Doesn't mean that we can't consider areas outside, but we're always going to have to draw a line somewhere, and the questions are always most hotly contested immediately either side of that line. The last block that's in and the first block that's out are the two that'll be compared to each other. I'm yet to find perfect line placement, but if there are key open space issues that are just outside the boundary area, yes, we'll take those into account. We can write those up in a master plan as guidance and context, and if they don't require a change in the planning rules, then they go on to the implementation plan. It might be that we're working with other parts of government to jointly pull together a project or something like that. Yeah.
To what extent do you push this plan? How far out in the future does this plan go? For example, do you look 50 years hence at the what town centre going to look like and the suburbs around, or do you look at 10 years?
We have short, medium and long-term views, but in an area like this where there's such a high level of growth, in practice, I'd be really surprised if we weren't back within the next decade reviewing the detailed framework yet again, simply because the rate of change has and will continue to be high. The existing planning framework is less than a decade old, and we're here reviewing it because of the changes we've seen. But some things are very long term. So light rail, we know where those tracks are going to be for the next 50 years. We can lock that one in. Uh,
Can I just make
yeah.
one point about the light rail? I mean, if one could look into the future, there will be a lot of people using that space in 20 years' time. Parking will be an issue. And with the green spaces down here, for example, if I was paying, I would have several hectares of space put aside just for parking, push bikes, trams, scooters, so people can use quite high. But when it just comes to the net back fence up here, you can't move it. People get a car park, this means tonight. And you think 10, 20 years down the track, it's just going to be dead. You don't encourage people to use bike lane, and that's what provided.
Sure. So, yep, so each of the surface car parks that you see at the moment you can consider to be in the longer term a future development site. A general approach to parking is that a new development needs to replace, if it's say a commercial development, shops or an office building, replace the car parking that was there before the development plus whatever new parking or additional parking it generates through the range of uses that it brings in. In terms of how people would come to the town centre to use light rail, remember the buses that currently run the intertown route from Gungahlin will be reallocated back into the network. So we'd hope that people will start making multi-mode public transport journeys. They'll catch a bus from the suburbs into the town centre, jump on light rail to complete their journey, or walk or ride.
Just to take that point, with the new development here at up the road, one of those buildings has no provision for cars. But it's a 500-metre walkway on those high rises to the first train stop, which is quite nice. That might be a bit of an ask for some people. So there'd be a bus that takes them from there to the light rail and then away they go.
They'd end up walking to whatever the nearest, probably final stop on a bus route would be, and it's probable. Would there be many stops that are within the last 500 metres of the approach to an interchange? Oh, even if I thought more generally, there'd probably still be. Yep. When we're talking about planning walkability, we typically look at two walkability zones, one that's about 400 metres and one that can be anything up to sort of 800 metres, and we're really talking about the 5 and the 10 minute walk radius there. So at 500 metres it sits just outside the tighter of those, but still well within the longer of those. Someone who had a mobility constraint that couldn't walk 400 or 500 metres to a bus stop would probably be relying on an alternate aid anyway. They might have a mobility scooter or something like that.
So just on that, I think the 500 was actually a mistake. It's closer to 800. 500 is when the light rail stopped. Spoken about
Yep.
being just out
Okay, so if it's at 800, it's at the upper end of that.
here. Yeah, just the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, so at 800 it'll be at the upper end of that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Gary, for that update. Much appreciated.
No problem. I'll
Take one there. Yeah, just on buildings, I forgot to mention this up front. One of the additional projects that for which a DA had been lodged in the Precinct 2B, the Pod Projects development, which is two towers, one of 14, one of 18 stories, was approved earlier this week. I think it's important to note there were a total of 3 representations made to that DA. One was from the Gungahlin Community Council. I don't know where the other 2 came from. So the amount of public activity responding to those development applications is well, in a word, low. So, which is interesting. Moving quickly on to Gungahlin's hottest topic, road infrastructure. I understand Fleur from, I'm not sure which part, Transport Canberra will lead us away. If you'd like to click on, that would be great.
Thank you.
Your slides are ready to go. The clicker does the
Oh, you're so good. Thank you. The intelligence test. Click it on the right way. Yep. Is that working?
Yep.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm Fleur Flannery from Transport Canberra and City Services. I'm going to give you a probably a bit of a dry presentation on what is happening in terms of roads and other infrastructure around Gungahlin, so town centre and roadworks. Feel free to ask any questions that you have, and if I don't know the answer, there are a number of colleagues in the room I can draw on to answer some of your questions. And really, if we just sort of focus our thoughts on this is what is committed to be built, to be constructed over the next sort of 18 months, 24 months. So just to give you a bit of an overview, we have 7 projects underway within Transport Canberra and City Services. Other directorates have a number of other projects, but the ones that I'm going to focus on are the ones that Transport Canberra is specifically involved in. And the numbers on the slide obviously correlate to discussion points. So first of all, the major town centre improvements. This should come as no surprises to you, but we have the light rail, the new Gungahlin bus station, so connecting buses, light rail, parking, walking. Hibberson Street, Gosard Street to Gungahlin Place, improved functionality of design, so going out to the community and seeing how that space is to be used, because it'll be dramatically different than what it is now and what it will be in 12 months, and I think it's good for us to cast our thoughts to what that might be. And all the Gungahlin Town Centre East, so supporting the future growth, both residential and commercial growth of the area. And just to kind of break this presentation into 2, because I'll go into some more detail about the projects as they come up. We have the Horse Park Drive duplication. I have the pleasure of listening to the radio every single morning, as many of you do, and many of you are in it. I'm in it every day as well. So yes, there is work underway in terms of Horse Park Drive duplication in 3 different stages. Notwithstanding, we know that there will be congestion, and there is congestion. So the Gundaroo Drive duplication, that is very exciting. You can see it's happening in front of you. You know, bridges and things like that are complicated things to build, but it's underway. And then the intersections at Taylor that connect onto Horse Park Drive, so to support future growth of the area. So just in a little bit more detail around the Gungahlin Town Centre. The extension of Ernest Kavanagh, so from Hinder Street to Manning Clark Street, is about to go out to tender, so it's happening. It's important that we sequence that work first. Mightn't be the bit that everyone wants first, but in terms of making sure we get the light rail infrastructure and the buses working, so if we're talking about offering alternative transport and mode shift, we have to make sure the roadwork can support, you know, the buses and the trains to do that. The new road south of Valley Avenue, 2nd stage of the road work. So this again is to support the rerouting of the buses and cars. So just to kind of go through that in detail, a new road will be constructed south of Valley Avenue. It'll provide access and services to new blocks of land, provide a link to Gungahlin Place, Kate Crace, Manning Clark. There's intersections associated with that to become signalised. When we have lots of traffic movement, we probably all experienced it tonight going through there. Safety of buses, safety of cars, timing, all of that can become a lot safer with intersections in there. And works to commence mid-2017 and should take about 9 months to complete. So quite an ambitious timetable on that one. So if I go back, to the very first diagram, which I think, so Valleyway there, this new road here will be constructed. Ian, you might want to help me out in terms of the buses, but what we are aiming to do is to get all the traffic movements off this area and onto that so that we can do work into this space.
And on the other side of the other side of common ground, there's a bunch of churches and other places to worship. Okay, on the opposite side.
Yep.
Oh, okay. That's not in the grass. This has never been brought up before. This is a real surprise.
Part of the Gungahlin Centre that was approved a couple weeks ago. So it forms part of the Gungahlin Centre development.
Yeah, well, we've had other road cases here.
I can't, I'm in the here and now, I don't know what has or hasn't been discussed, but in trying to make sure I get my head around it all, I've been coordinating the projects as they happen in Gungahlin Town Centre, trying to work out how we facilitate bus movements and other car movements. And so, as I said, I don't know what has or hasn't been discussed, but I do know that that road is looking to be constructed.
There's a new one there already that goes between Manning Park and
Manning Clark and Cape Grace.
Let's take an action to pull out of the East Gungahlin DA a bit of a map to highlight that, just so people are aware of what that looks like.
So if we can get information back to you about it, yeah, we can come back.
I noticed the corner of Gungahlin and Place, sort of like Goddard and Carl.
Yes?
Buses were turning, had,
A stop-go person?
yeah.
Temporary traffic, yeah.
Are we going to see traffic lights there if you're doing
Not in the, there's no intention to put traffic lights there at the moment. There is, because of other work, there is another set of traffic lights which I'll come to that are going to be put in as part of the new bus station. At the moment, they're trying to regulate the bus and traffic movement through there, and so we're just trying to work out how long that's needed for, but there's no intention that I'm aware of to put traffic lights, signalise that area, because there's another signalisation going up on another part of the road, which I'll get to. So I think the part that we're signalising this intersection, that being the new bus station interchange. So if I go back to my original map, it is, just can help me out with the names of the roads that we're signalising up the top there. This one? Goddard. Yeah.
So the way it's operating at the moment, it's carrying traffic that ultimately...
We will be. And we've only had the marshals in place since Monday, so we are actively monitoring what's happening in that area to see what other changes may not be needed in that space. But it is... Yep.
permanent signals are adaptive, so the permanent signals take cues from the traffic, from the detector loops, so they can adapt to what's actually happening in real time.
Well, I guess
So-
case in point, we've got a young lady with something happening who is building repair. And so the pedestrian goes off there, so I guess the suggestion was, and that point was the signal was taken.
We'll certainly continue to monitor how the current arrangement performs. It's sort of one of the ideas that we've had in mind if the traffic marshal finds it difficult or unsafe to make a gap, we'll get simple window controlled by the marshal. So that's a potential adjustment that we might make if we want to.
So I guess the key message out of that is, yes, we are aware it's a problem. We have an interim solution. It may need enhancements, it may not, and we are fully cognizant that it is school holidays and the traffic volume at the moment don't accurately reflect what the normal traffic volume is, and it's getting darker and all of those kind of things. So when we're trying to manage the road network or any of the public space, our safety is the priority in that respect.
We met this afternoon with 3 unit marshals of PMP. So there's now 2 marshals in the afternoon. May I just ask one question about the road south of Valley Avenue? That might not be an issue, but it looks as if it means on the eastern side, Manning Park, very close to Barbara Jeffers. On the map that you showed me, it looks as if it almost fed into Barbara Jeffers.
It's south of that.
Would there be a roundabout there?
No, it's south. It's south of.
Further south.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right.
The diagrams are very
I know.
So still in the town centre, as I mentioned in the introduction, Hibberson Street, we are aware it will change. There is some preliminary thinking around, there has been some work about what the community might want, what the businesses might want. It's not ready to come back to the community yet, but we're looking sort of at a time frame of mid this year to come back with some options about what it might be. So I guess, the message from that is that we are thinking about it and we are hoping to work with the community in that space rather than say it's going to be fully pedestrianised or otherwise. The bit I guess the good news story is that work is progressing on the existing carriageway. So this part here, you might wonder why different staging of it's there. Why isn't it sort of continuous that you do the whole lot? Some parts of it are, to support Throsby over here. Whoops, don't go away on me. It did.
Restart.
It's restarting. I can talk to it. You can have a virtual picture in your head. Horse Park. So just to reading from my notes, works are progressing on the existing carriageway at Mapleton Avenue and Well Station Drive intersections. Next traffic switch and final asphalt and line marking to occur in May-June. The next part 2, is the Anthony Rolfe Avenue to Mulligan's Flat Road. So work will start on that very soon. There's site preparatory work going underway. The upgrades include new traffic lights at Francis Ford Boulevard, Catherine Avenue South and Mulligan's Flat Road. And then the third part, the Federal Highway to Well Station Drive. We're looking to commence work in the middle of this year, and there have been some geotechnical issues that we've had to resolve, so it is slightly delayed but not impeded, if that makes sense. I know the faster the better, but it does take a while to build roads. I'll just keep talking, and I think you're all pretty aware of the kind of context of my presentation. So the last part is around the Taylor intersections. Construction's well underway. Oh, we're back. Great. Thank you. temporary speed limits will be in place, that there's some resurfacing work. The intersection of Mirabelle Drive and the most western intersection of Horse Park Drive have been asphalted, and all intersections are expected to be complete by the end of April, so that work's supporting the development of Taylor. Yep. My understanding that part is one way each way, but I will take that on notice and check that out. So I'll come back to you on that part. Yeah.
I believe the intersections are also ready for double lane. The intersections will be huge and then run straight back into
The first instance of the from the connection to Horse Park Drive also didn't actually duplicate bits of the road between the intersections. It looks like that duplicated.
I think the Taylor we played just last week or months back, because the way I see it, one group was just done a few months back, and again we are digging the road just to connect to Taylor. Doesn't make any sense. Where we had an opportunity to build everything in the first place, so we don't, time, waste of time, money, everything.
I certainly hear what you're saying. Depending on the way the projects are funded and phased and things like that, it's sometimes we are able to do the whole lot of work in one go, and other times there are different pressures on doing other works or a range of works. So Ken, you're going to say.
While there's some efficiency gained by building capacity before it's needed, there's also that's offset by an opportunity cost of what that money could be used for in the meantime somewhere else. So there's a fine balance between trying to time the provision of infrastructure as the demand comes online, so that that capital money can be utilised.
So what you're saying is in Gungahlin we probably end up playing catch-up games all the time?
I guess what I'm saying is that on either extreme, you risk not using the capital to its best effect. So if infrastructure is built too early, it not only
we're talking about like 2 months difference, you know what I mean? One group was just a new one.
I guess I'm talking in general terms rather than trying to analyse a specific case. But the general principle is that there is an opportunity cost of capital, and there also is maintenance and operation cost of infrastructure that's built before the demand, before its use demand exists. So ideally, you build the infrastructure at the exact moment when the demand arises. Now, obviously, that's a very difficult thing to achieve in practice, but I suppose the point is that in the planning of the provision of infrastructure, there is this balance between spending the money too early and therefore foregoing other opportunities that capital could have been used for on one hand, or on the other hand, building the infrastructure too late and having unmet demand. So that's always a balance. We can argue about when we've got that balance right and when we've got it wrong, but the point is that there is a balance there, and the secret of, I guess, plan is to try and get the timing as close as possible to that point where the demand comes along.
And I think one of the lessons learned is trying to get some of the big infrastructure in place, like some of the intersections and provisions for space and bridges and all of those kind of things. So although, as Ken was saying, it may seem like history is repeating itself, it is, there's a lot of investment going into Gungahlin at the moment, and, across the government, across the ACT, it probably has the most investment in it at the moment, and there is a need for that. But we also need to look at other roads around the network. And there was just a lady with a question over here.
Yeah, I'm in support of what that gentleman was saying. I've sat in the traffic from Anthony Road onto Horse Park Drive for quite some time now, and I watched them put in that intersection there, and I didn't physically watch it because I was sitting in the traffic jam for such a long time somewhere. And now I saw the other day they're smashing it to pieces, and it hasn't ever been used. Crosby haven't got a house built on there yet. route, all sorts of bike paths and God knows what else there. I saw a digger the other day just digging a whole lot up, and it's never been used, and it's a criminal waste of money. And I understand what you're saying about, well, we need to spend money elsewhere, but that's an absolute utter waste. There's no two ways about it. So I think we need to take into account what that gentleman was saying. This is our taxpayers' money. We may as well have just pulled it down again. Because to see a bulldozer come along and just rip the whole thing up, it's just actually quite heartbreaking.
That's the issue of data, right? So there were a bunch of intersections built and some planning changes were made, and there are large portions of Portage Drive, front of Taylor, that will be less than 12 months old before it's ripped up. And I've heard there are arguments that these arguments before, and we've raised these before, but there's no consistency. So if you go over to Molongo, John Gordon Drive is 2 lanes each way from Cotter Road almost to Copper's Crossing. And guess what? There is not 2 lanes worth of traffic there yet. But clearly a different rule applies, or a bit of better vision was implemented. So whatever it is, but it's not like this message has not been communicated from the Gungahlin community that we are never getting ahead of the curve. And at any point, we are doomed for another decade or 2 of being behind the 8 ball. So at what point are we going to stop being behind the 8 ball and get ahead of the curve? I understand there's another presentation coming shortly on strategic road planning. I'm absolutely on the edge of my seat for that. But clearly, I can point to numerous examples, and not 20 years ago when we had lots of money, but right now, in Molongo, where infrastructure is being built for the future, and it's not being done in Gungahlin, and it is late. And I'm not sure that it's fair to keep loading this onto some of the representatives that come from the departments, but it's just a fact. It's just an absolute fact that the roads are heavily congested, and it's late. Should have been done something.
How much do you rely on cash flow to control this money? You put this in, it's obvious in most developments that the first thing that gets laid in is the intersection, the roads through, so there will be easy flow into the new development. I guess that's contractors and things like that as well, and that's fine. But, how much is the ACP budget put aside? How much do you rely on contractors to kick in before it's not investment?
I can't answer that in specific terms. It's
And we'll probably come to that point when we do start to talk about specific planning or organisations. Primarily the role of the people who are here tonight is our management and existing. So our strategic planning is about the organisation of the existing network and how it centres by growth of the city, rather than planning of the front infrastructure that directly serves the community growth. So there is a internal in government, there's sort of different approaches and different areas responsible.
What might be in the scope is with that Horse Park Drive next stadium, if you look at where it comes down to Canberra Highway, that would carry the bulk of the traffic. All that traffic has to get into Gungahlin. So as you go past Harrison and all the other feeder roads, the traffic would thin all the way down. So it would be biological assumption. So why is the next stage of duplication down to flat when a lot of the traffic probably will through the Horse Park now, rather than duplication of the rail station up to the floating where all the bulk of the traffic is, because it can only go one place, it can on Federal Highway, that's where the bulk of the traffic congestion is. I don't understand the logic of doing
Yeah. I know I presented them as slightly differently, but one has a little bit more investigative work. There are some geotechnical issues. Yeah.
area of land adjacent to
Yeah, so that, yeah, so I didn't know if you wanted the explanation of exactly what it was, but that was very helpful because I was, you know, when I was putting it together, I was like, okay, geotechnical issues, but it's good. Okay.
I've got a few from Facebook.
Yeah,
All right.
great.
Cool. Thank you, David. And I'll just try and distill them down to what we're talking about here. First one, is there any, and this one you may or may not be able to answer, but we'll see. Is there any consideration to the intersection of Horse Park Drive and Catherine Avenue? That'll be the one near Ford, obviously not the one with traffic lights on it. The T intersection.
Look, I'll probably have to take some of these on notice to come back to you. I'm not sure if it's planned, unplanned. Yep, sorry.
the intersection of Horse Park Drive is going to be traffic signals.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds yes, good answer.
Yep, thank you. And another one here. What is being done about parking at the temporary interchange in Gungahlin? Essentially parking in the marketplace. I think we spoke on that.
So it's the park and ride facilities filling up
Yep.
very early. Is there any measures in place to ensure that those people parking there are legitimate commuters and not leaving your house and stuff?
We can have a look at that. I don't know the answer if it's. I mean, it could. I don't know quite the answer if it's resulting from people catching transport or if they're parking there all day because they work here or what they are.
It's a very simple way to fix it. Put gates on the entrances and you tap on with a motorway card to pay.
Yep.
If you haven't used that motorway card to travel, say 2 hours, then you get charged a day's park.
You could call it a smart city initiative,
Easy to do that.
right.
I'll take that on board. Yep. Sorry. Okay.
So parking lot is sitting down behind us. We could look to turn it into a permit. So whether we need all of it or some of it, we can do a look at that and say very similar. You apply with your highway card through that registration to have a parking permit issued for that location. And should you be parking there and it's not permit, you'll be issued. There's a couple of ways you can look at doing it. You can also do it like if the spot's not taken by 10:30 in the morning, it could be a free for all after then. So, there's something that we can go and have a look at and come back to.
Right.
If I throw my parking coordinator general hat on, would you like us to actually work up a proposal and bring it back to you for consultation on doing exactly that? Permit zone for park and ride?
If it indeed is full, then absolutely. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. No, that's good. Thanks.
Thank you. For
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I'll jump up here. I think that has got to be the toughest gig in the public ACT public service, coming out to talk to the Gungahlin community about roads. All right, but Carl's up for it, so he's going to talk about the planning process for all this. Let it go.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. My name's Carl Cluse. I'm the Senior Manager of the Strategic Planning and Development Area within Roads ACT. What I'd like to bring to your attention first up is that Roads ACT does not build roads. We augment the existing road network. The existing new roads that you see around Gungahlin are actually put in place by the Land Development Authority and the Planning Authority. So Planning Authority may provide a trunk road that links it to a new suburb that they want to develop, and then the Land Authority come in and build a suburb. Okay, so what my presentation is going to be about is the prioritisation of our augmentation or improving our road network. Okay, let's hope this. How do I move it down?
Political.
Okay, that way. Thank you. When we look at identifying what our priority is, we actually look at quite a large number of factors. In our capital works and our capital upgrade program, we've got 23 programs where we look at augmenting our existing system. So we'll have programs for traffic signals, intersection improvements, road augmentation, stormwater augmentation, barriers, dams, etc. From those 23 programs, we try to seek capital works funding or capital upgrade funding to undertake those on an annual basis. When we look at particularly the road improvements, there are a large number of factors that we need to take into place. One of them, as you're all talking about at the moment, is whether it's delivered on time. There is an attempt to deliver it on time, and we try to utilise the information that is available to us through the land development proposals, so which suburbs are being developed, what is the perceived population and usage and travel from those suburbs that might use the existing network. We utilise the information that comes to us from the Planning Authority, who have a model called the EMME2 model, which looks at the statistical population figures that you get from the census, as well as predictions in growth, and utilising that information and the work to travel information, make predictions on the routes that people might take to workplaces. And that is used then to determine whether or not one of our roads that are in place, whether they be single one lane in each direction, then meets the warrant that we've got that is used from design standards to say, yes, you've reached the capacity of your network. Because we're looking at arterial roads, we use the standards created by Ausroads. It's a national standard for Australia, which provides us direction on how we design and build our road network. We also look at information that comes from other areas within Roads ACT, such as the crash data that we get from the AFP, the volume analysis that we do when we put out loops out on the roads to determine what the volume of traffic is, what the breakdown of traffic is, as well as the loops that you have at traffic signals. That information is gathered to determine when we reach that threshold that we've got congestion and need to seek improvements. The other things are through observations. We get public concerns about traffic congestion. We go out and observe, we monitor and look at what's going on there. And of course we do have our own strategic plans, whether they are the strategic freight network and other plans that might provide an impetus on the priority that we have in our roads. And of course we do get ministerials. Growth and demand. As I mentioned earlier, we use the Ausroads design criteria for the road network, and they state that a road starts requiring some duplication or an extra lane when you start reaching about 1,080 vehicles per hour on the network. So we do monitor that through our traffic signal loops or our loops that we place on the road network annually. Anything under 1,080 vehicles is seen to be free flow. So what we do is we look at the road network and we determine what is the flow of traffic in the peak periods. And you'll see that on this graph you have a peak congestion for the AM and you have a peak congestion for the PM. The AM is much more peakier because most people want to try and get to schools, houses, businesses and work at the same time, but in the afternoon the peak is a little less because there's a longer period at which people may make that journey home. Well, just does not want to play the video. Yeah. So can we hit the carriage return on that? Down. Oh, okay.
Oh, it was like live video. How exciting.
Yeah. Maybe I have to explain this. What I was hoping to show you is some live video of Gungahlin Drive. and it's live video showing Gundaroo Drive travelling from the Barton Highway, William Slim, Gundaroo Drive intersection, travelling to the east towards Gungahlin Drive, etc. And what it showed is the peak. You could see visually the peak, and that's what we then record. Because one of the things that we try to do with our projects is look at a pre-evaluation and then do a post-evaluation to see whether or not we've achieved the outcomes that we sought from that works that we're proposing. Okay.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? One question from Facebook. For we that cannot see one of those peak numbers, so I was typing out and I can hear the context of it properly.
Yeah, I don't really want to go and give you the detail, but as you can see, the peak is telling us that the volume of traffic is greater than what the design of that road is at this moment for that short period, whether it be an hour period or whether it may be an hour and a half in the afternoon. Okay.
Thank you.
It's unfortunate with the video.
So the whatever the EM square or whatever data analysis thing you've been using, how long have you been using that for?
Well, I haven't been using it directly because it is a planning authority tool, and they revise it with every 5-year survey that's done by the Australian census data. So they utilise the census data, which identifies where people are located, how many are in a suburb. It may determine where their direction of travel for sport or work, schools, etc. And then that is put into the model to determine a route that possibly could be taken.
So it doesn't predict the future traffic?
It doesn't. It utilises the information, and then there is a factor that's put in for population growth. If they know there's a new suburb coming on and they know it's got so many number of dwellings, they'll then work out the number of vehicles or travel vehicles that might be at each of those households to generate a volume.
Because otherwise it would have predicted the duplication on the house block and the edges back.
Well,
But joining up the prediction to the planning and the construction, so the model may well have predicted it, but as we said, there are still other decisions that need to be made along the way. So our modelling is already telling us in the not too distant future the city is going to have a lot of east-west traffic movement problems. Hindmarsh Drive, Puddle Road, Parks Way, because of the growth in residential dwellings on the west of the city and jobs on the east of the city. So the model predicts that stuff, but we then need to undertake planning and muster the resources to build the projects.
How much of that is not available?
Not in a decipherable form.
It's very complicated. I'm not a traffic engineer. You need a traffic engineer to start interpreting it.
They won't
Yeah.
have me look at the model because I'm not smart enough. It's for traffic engineers.
Yeah. Science. Yeah.
There are people around who can look at this stuff and use their own stuff. I can check that.
Well, it's the planning authority's model.
That number, look, we might be able to find a way to kick it out onto an open data platform.
But the other thing that the other week in my group, a number of the person saying, why are we doing certain things and we just have like an hour or 2 hours and
I mean, we have a lot of very sophisticated tools ourselves. And, people on 666 admit they use Google Maps to get better traffic distance. It's very easy for us to see pretty sophisticated tools to show traffic flow, right? That you can go back and ask at any time. So surely, the guys at Inro Software can do something to make the modelling tools better.
Well, we do utilise other techniques such as your phones. So So everyone that has a phone on and left on in their car, we can actually monitor that travel. So we get feedback through that. It gives us a volume of traffic movement. So yeah.
There is a lot of stuff already out there saying
Yeah, well, we have Bluetooth sensors on the network connected with our street lights. Okay, this is just an example of something that we might do, and this is more to your point. This is Gundaroo Drive. Now with Gundaroo Drive, when we tried to put it up and get money for it, we identified over a 3-year period what the accidents are in both intersection and mid-block. So the numbers that you see here in blue are mid-block accidents, and the numbers in red are intersection accidents. Now, the Barton Highway, William Slim, Gundaroo Drive, that intersection was the black spot for the ACT, and it was a black spot for quite a number of years. We couldn't get Commonwealth funding for it because Commonwealth funding is actually very limited in how much money you can utilise out of that. So it then became a ACT Government Capital Works program to provide the signalling sets that you've got out on the intersection there. That intersection had on average about 280 accidents a year. Now the intersection at the moment that's in place, there is indications that the number of accidents are decreasing.
So still the accident happens?
There is still accidents, but it's far better than what it was previously. Now with this intersection and mid-block numbers, mid-block accidents indicate to us congestion. There are issues with merging of traffic, people getting a bit aggro, they've got to sit in, they try to cut in, break in, accelerate, run up the back of someone else. So as you can see, between Gungahlin Drive and Merribee Drive, we have 106 mid-block accidents. Yet down the rest of Gundaroo Drive, we don't have that volume. So that is why we've staged the work. So that area between Gungahlin Drive and Merribee Drive has been put into stage 1, which has been delivered at this point in time. Okay? As I mentioned earlier, we try to use the land release information from the LDA as to where development is occurring, the proposed number of dwellings to be delivered in that year or in subsequent years, and this is what we've used for 15-16 in looking at providing a case for a bid for funds to do the Gungahlin Drive Stage 2 works from Gungahlin Drive down to the Barton Highway. Okay. Now, with our road augmentation, we have a program which is called a 1 year. This is what we're proposing to do in 2017-18. We then have a 2 to 5 year program. And then we have a 5 to 10 year program of forward intentions. And that can change depending on whether or not we're receiving data that indicates there is a higher priority in the network that needs to be addressed because there is development coming online. Now, earlier it was mentioned that why don't we, like the Molonglo development, provide a dual carriageway both ways, and why wasn't it done for Gungahlin in the first instance? We've had a fair bit of backlash regarding the Molonglo development because of the underutilisation of the asset. The pavement will fail earlier because it's not being used. So it's best to actually deliver a road on time than to have it come in too late or too early. Okay. Well, Horse Park Drive was on our plan. The thing that was accelerated was the actual land development. The ACT government utilises land development as its funding source. And so there was a sort of a preempting to hurry up with some of the land sales to provide revenue to government. And this was something that we had no control over. And so we put in a bid at a time that we think is appropriate, and there are other parties also bidding for these funds.
The community we're looking is we being the government, not your directorate. You know, like LDA and your directorate's still the government. That's the way we're looking at it. The comment was made last night by the gentleman that we're surprised with the growth of Gungahlin. Well, you're the ones who do a grant release, so you can't be surprised when you're putting land out there. It just seems like it's a bit of a silly comment.
That one's probably one for me because our directorate's been charged with bringing together the disparate land functions and trying to better coordinate that for the future. That won't solve the problems that we've got here in Gungahlin at the moment. I won't pretend that it does, but we are trying to improve it for the future.
I'm going to paraphrase what you just said and probably come across top ones as well as I would like. I heard you say that one part of ACT government doesn't know what another part of ACT government is doing, and therefore we get a planning requirement. How, if you can't understand what different parts of ACT government are going to do, how do you accommodate development such as the CSIRO site, which is a massive site that's just going on, not necessarily in Gungahlin, but with a huge amount of work that's going to be going just over our border. How do you accommodate to that, given you just said to us, ACT left and right hand out talking to you? Are you scratching, right?
Yep, sorry, tangled now, right. Woohoo!
That one's fairly and squarely me because the Chief Minister's asked me to act as the single point of contact with CSIRO to make sure that we do have visibility about the phasing of their development so that we can work out how many cars are going to be coming down the Barton Highway and how do we talk to them about making infrastructure contributions to upgrade everything from water and sewerage assets, if that's where the pressure's being transferred, to roads. And we know that road pressures will build significantly from that development. CSIRO in their planning have made an allowance for infrastructure upgrades. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to put the number in the public domain. That's probably for them to talk about, but it is a significant number and it's not materially different to what we estimate the infrastructure cost to be. So it's close enough that with a sensible discussion we think they'll make the right sort of contribution. But the Chief Minister has been quite open. He is worried about the disconnected nature of that development. He has asked the CSIRO to come and sit more comfortably within our regular planning framework so that we can do those infrastructure upgrades.
When this extra CSIRO, also when they go in, do the land sales that accommodate some of the money from the land sales go to the ACT government to help us increase the capacity of the feeder roads and things that go into those developments?
That's what I was just saying. The CSIRO in particular have made an allowance within their project budget.
So that will actually come from the ACT?
It will either come to the ACT government or they will fund the works directly. It can be either. And I've seen the allowance that they've made and it's reasonably consistent with the estimate we've got.
So Carl, in the planning that the LDA sites that are building,
Yeah.
you don't have the new suburb that's been developed just over here in the town centre. There's about 2,500 units that are either approved or being approved in that tiny little location, just there, at the edge of the town centre. How do you accommodate that? How do you plan for the fact that there were 2,500 cars, residences there that weren't before? So
So this is ongoing.
Well, it may be difficult in this particular one because this is using a bid for the 15-16 program, so we have to try and look at what the land releases are that LDA have. But if they haven't identified, it for us, we can't put it into our program.
Well, it's identified for everyone else. They're publicly notified through DAs. So everyone knows there are 3 towers under construction now, with 2 more approved, 2 in DA, and 2 others proposed. So everyone knows this is coming. How could you not know?
Well, as I said,
high-rise buildings.
Those high-rise buildings are probably within the suburb. We don't build new roads within the suburb. We build the new roads, which are your arterial roads, your Horse Park Drive, your Gungahlin Drive. So if there's feeder traffic that's running to those arterials, then yes, if we can get that information from the planning authority and those that are selling blocks and dwellings, we put that into our model, which is the planning authority that uses that model to tell us where those volumes of traffic are going.
At a more detailed level, and I'll speak up, I think the microphone will pick me up from... Those sites are within an existing area, and they're in an area that was initially conceived as an office precinct. And so there's an underlying set of assumptions about what the traffic generated by an office precinct would be. So we'll make assumptions about the size of the building, the number of workers, and the traffic flow for an office would typically be into the site in the morning and out in the afternoon. If we switch that round to residential, we'd expect to see main traffic flow to be out in the morning and in the evening. Development applications are circulated to agencies within ACT government. That is part of our coordination to pick up the different views. Everything from ACTU telling us, will the sewerage infrastructure be under different pressures from a residential population rather than an office population, and it can be. And roads are one of our circulation referral agencies, so they'd give us an indication, look, do we think the road infrastructure as conceived for office use, will it still stand up to the pressures of a change to residential accommodation? Intersections and their performance are one of the key things that we do regularly get feedback. Says, look, that intersection is going to struggle if you're changing that pattern of use. We're going to have to either reconfigure it or change where the driveway would be. And so some of the developers who are working up around there will find that we'll focus right in on driveway. How are you going to design the driveway and how does it connect?
There's a distinction, I guess, between the original plan, the original decisions, where we in those lands use statistics of the only input, and the planning that Carl's predominantly talking about, which is the ongoing plan of the network once it's in place and once it's in operation, and the impacts of peripheral development on the existing network. In that planning exercise, we've got many more inputs other than just the land use data. So we've got live data about how the network's actually behaving. We've got crash statistics. We've got volume statistics. We've got on the ground observations. So there's a whole range of inputs that go into our analysis of how the existing network is actually performing, and therefore where the pressure points are.
Acknowledge that. I just, in the 2 and 5 year plan, there's nothing there that looks to be, well, I think scale's pretty hard to see, that talks about addressing some of the feeder roads, particularly, for example, between Mirabai Drive and Horse Park Drive. So common sense, you've heard the anecdotal comments around the congestion that exists right now, today. And, you think, okay, if we put 2,500 more people right in the middle of the town centre where there's already congestion, sort of, the pub test falls over cataclysmically because there's no plan that I'm aware of to duplicate any of the road infrastructure other than what's already been talked about. No plans to duplicate Mirabai Drive, no plans to duplicate Gungahlin to Horse Park Drive. Still existing challenges going east from that same location. So
without going down those specifics, so the other approach may is that the fact that a project doesn't appear on the 1, 2, or even for that matter the 10-year plan doesn't mean that issue or even that specific location hasn't been considered and won't continue to be considered as those future plans are refined. I suppose all of this planning is influenced by the resource constraints. So the point we can make earlier when we were talking about the availability of information to identify potential pressure points in the future, that's really only part of the puzzle. It's one thing to identify where future pressures, future needs, future desire might be for augmentation. It's another thing entirely to fit that within the resources that the community realistically has to deploy. So,
Yeah, look, I believe the Merribee Drive is actually on the 5 to 10 year plan.
Okay, I like that. It's very hard to see.
Yeah, I mean, this that I put up was just a snapshot to show you that what we've proposed for the 2 to 5, and that can change.
Revenue.
Yeah, it's revenue.
Yes, I suspect no. The answer is directly no.
So, revenue from all sources goes to a consolidated pool, and then every project competes against it. The really simple discussion, the really simple answer to why not is, in the life of a suburb, what you'll find is then that suburbs will attract a lot of attention when they're in their early stages and the land is being sold, and then they'll get zero attention later. And so the competition for resources across a city has to take account of the different revenue and expense flows across time. So it would mean you'd get new roads and then never ever any maintenance from them afterwards. So.
That even makes it even stronger, doesn't it? Because if we don't get it now, we'll never get it. And I don't understand why you would be putting 2,500 people into an area and saying we effectively know the road system's not going to be up to that, but we're going to do it anyway. And
I don't. Oh no, I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that we've said it's not up to it. I don't think we've said that.
What I'm trying to articulate here is there continues to be
roads
an
is the
ongoing crisis of confidence.
Yeah.
That we kind of apply common sense to it. A lot of houses being built, a lot more cars, roads need to be duplicated, and that's just not being addressed. And so we see a lot of investment here. Golly, that's going to be a traffic problem in a congested area, but we don't know that that's in hand. So there's a lack of confidence that it's in hand.
That view is evident. I've just finished sending a text message to a colleague that says we're looking disconnected here. Government is not explaining its full position as well as I know we should be able to, because seeing the different parts, the coordination behind the scenes is nowhere near as bad as we sometimes make it look when we get up here and talk to you. So we need to get better at being buddies, and so we'll find.
All right. So I know potential questions, then we do have one more speaker, and Carl's not done yet. So there's more good stuff to come.
Not from the person who just sent me a text message that said I've done we look on Facebook.
That sentiment is happening on my screen as well. But that actually might be an easy one for you. The upgrades to the Barton Highway roundabout have improved the morning traffic flow, but seems to have pushed the congestion from the Barton Highway and Federal Highway intersections. Are there any plans to address these? So I guess what the question is, are you seeing any movement of traffic away from the Barton Highway as a result of the intersection?
Very difficult, because there's so much other works that's happening within the area of Gungahlin. You know, when you've got the light rail and then the closure of Flemington Road, you've got people who are moving along the Flemington Road as their usual path, deciding, well, it's congested this morning, it will be continuing to be congested, I'll take another route, I'll take an alternate route. So at the moment it's very difficult to start pinning where is this traffic going when even, you know, we tell you Hibbertson Street's closed, so the traffic will then try and get around that and change its course depending on experience of the motorist. If the motorist says, I've been here for an hour in congestion, he's going to find another route to take. And so one of the things that we tried to do before the light rail was delivered was the extra lane on the Gungahlin Drive through Sandford Street intersection through to the Barton Highway to try and improve the movement, particularly when Flemington Road becomes throttled because of the construction work that's going to happen along Flemington. And it's hoped that traffic will move towards Horse Park Drive, Gungahlin and the Tuggeranong Parkway direction to get access to the city. Okay.
Cool. Let's press on.
Okay, as I showed you, that is the 1-year plan. That is on the plan we show Gundaroo Drive stage 2. We have the east-west of Pielago Avenue to the airport and the Monero Highway. The reason why Pielago Avenue and Monero Highway have been put into our planning, it's not for construction, it is simply the feasibility of what needs to be done there to link it to the Majura Parkway is because the federal government has provided us funds. So we're utilising that fund to do some forward studies to what will happen when Tralee is developed and other development is happening in the south, as well as future Cowan connections with Queanbeyan and Sutton Road development and the south east of New South Wales trying to get access to the international airport. The federal government believes that because the international airport has a unique situation where it is a 24-hour airport, there will be a change in the way some of the goods and services from Australia will be directed. And so there's allowance there for us to do some future planning for the duplication of that network. This is our 2 to 5 year forward intention program. There's roadworks continuing up on the Horse Park Drive, Coringa Drive, the William Slim and the road that was proposed around Palmerston. There was some works done there to deliver a road there. Unfortunately, with the asbestos disposal that happened in previous years, that has caused some replanning to be done as to how we'll manage when we work through that particular land. So that just gives you an indication of where we are going in the next 5 years. And that just gives you a list of some of those locations. Sorry you can't read it, it's small. Yeah. Okay, that's it from me, thank you. All of this obviously is then subject to bids that we put through to the government every year, and obviously the funding and competing programs that we have to compete against to deliver. Thank you.
Both computers don't know how to play the video, so someone stole it. It just looks like a black square. Sorry for keeping Richard from the podium until our last little bit. Richard works with Purdon's. He's representing a proponent for a site in the town centre. And how about you introduce the rest of it, and I'll do the technology stuff.
Yeah, sure.
There you go.
Do you have internet connectivity at all?
Yep. It will take a few moments.
It might be good to just go back up higher. That might be the best way to talk to it. I want to give a fairly brief presentation and just... Oh, sorry.
What do you want?
Yes, please. Yeah, that'd be great. I'm on Facebook too, which is exciting. Thanks very much for... ACMAPI would be great, yeah, and just bring up the development map. That would be excellent. So I just wanted to talk to you about Block 2, Section 59 in Gungahlin, which sits off Anthony Rolfe Crescent, once ACMAPI is up and running. And I'll trust that Peter can zoom to it. So just once we've got a bit of context, but effectively we're working on behalf of a construction company who own the site, which is currently a dirt car park. They have a provider to provide what is in essence a community facility. So the site is zoned for community purposes, so that allows any range of community type uses, anything from a childcare to a business agency to a local gym, a drop-in centre for networking, that type of thing. The history of the site is that previously a rather large childcare was approved on the site. That didn't work out to be financially viable. We've since managed to get a new provider to do a different type. I'm not at liberty to say what type of community facility that will be, but essentially the first 2 stories of the development will be locked up for community purposes. What we would like to talk to the Gungahlin Community Council is exploring the possibility of mixed-use community developments within Gungahlin in a broader scheme. So these types of developments work quite well elsewhere in Australia, where you'll have anything from a library to a childcare linked in with commercial and residential uses. What we propose to do is, thanks Peter. 59, perfect. And if you could just bring up the territory plan, that would be excellent. Right there, perfect. Excellent. So we're just talking about this site just here, Block 2, which sits next to an early learning centre and sits next to a couple of vacant blocks. So within the territory plan, there is an area through here which is locked up effectively for 6 hectares of community facility. What we're proposing to do is to explore whether or not some variety of commercial or residential could be linked in with that community facility. So that would mean effectively that you have 15 to 2,000 square metres of GFA locked into a community purpose, and then allow some other use to sit above that use. And it's more just opening it up for a discussion. We feel that this is a pretty, it does have merit in not necessarily locking up this whole area, still giving the value of community use to the area, so still having those community uses, but also revitalising that area to have a little bit more activity day and night. It's well placed and well situated within the centre of Gungahlin, so actually revitalising that area, well, not revitalising, but continuing that vitalisation of the town centre. And basically, I just wanted to put it out there for discussion to hear any kind of views that you may have, any concerns, any ideas, any issues that you envisage from it. So just opening it up for discussion. Peter.
Richard, I mean, community use, I mean, how broad a term is that?
It is quite a... So it is it's a broad umbrella term, so it can have anything from childcare, business agency, so you could have something akin to a government agency like a Medicare or a Centrelink on the site. You can have networking facilities there, so where people come and work, or to that effect. You can have a gym within community facility. So it is quite broad. So within that realm, it's just putting a thought bubble out there to basically explore not necessarily just this site either, but how that shapes up for Gungahlin and probably broader Canberra.
Do you know off the top of your head whether there are any prohibited or additional community facility zone uses on that site?
On that particular site, there's prohibited uses for aged care facility.
Just save me looking it up.
No, that's okay. Prohibited uses for aged care facility and for community housing. Supportive housing, yes. Yep.
Which would be the topical question.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So that means they can't go there?
Yeah, that's right.
So, of the full list of community facility uses, those two are...
Those two are exempt, yeah. That's aged care and supportive housing, not community housing.
In some places, and also be public supportive housing.
That's right. That's
Sorry,
right.
I'm confused. So who can't go there and who can go there? I'm just confused about the presentation. Sorry. bit of a recap.
Okay, sure. So at the moment we're looking at a site that's community facility. There is a provider that has been signed up for the site to effectively use the ground floor and level 1. So that locks in about 1,500 square metres of GFA. So there's a possibility of locking in 2,000 of GFA for community use, but actually exploring what other uses may be allowable above that. So just exploring effectively how the Euclidean zoning system, so we've got a very traditional zoning system where this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, and we're looking at exploring the possibility of a mixed-use community facility. So you'd still have community facility locked in, and that would be tied into the precinct code, but you'd also look at potentially commercial or residential sitting above that. Yeah.
Are you saying that, sorry, are you talking about it going, how many levels?
I think it allows, the plan allows around 6. Yeah, around 6. Potentially. So the site on its own merit is viable for community use, but we're just exploring if there is range to explore other uses within that realm. Potentially, yes.
Well, I suppose my point of view is we've got more than enough apartments going up at the moment.
Sure.
The preference would be some office space or some other voluntary
Sure.
rather than residential.
Sure. And I think we've looked at how they can Oh, I'm attached. Almost took Facebook with me.
I wish you could take down the trophy of conscious person in the room away from
Very good.
Just while that's loading, actually, yeah, something similar to something on Facebook. At an IT precinct with drop-in centre for youth in training and teaching learning environment for seniors. All the backbone of technology central development.
Okay, very good.
I can build on, like there was talk about a work hub.
Yeah.
This could be that location.
Okay. So are there, in terms of a work hub, and Peter brought that up when I spoke to him a few weeks ago. In terms of a work hub, is there such a facility in Gungahlin at this time? So there's.
It was a promise from the Labor government to look into it for federal public service as a place to come in and be able to log on and do some work.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
I know we've got the CIT in town there, and we've got a number of schools, we've got Gungahlin and Hull.
Sure.
Possible to maybe do an investigation to see if a tech college or a CIT or a tertiary, like, I know you've got, say, 6 floors,
Mm-hmm.
so you could easily get something like a tech college.
Yeah, okay. And there could be synergies with other uses, other community uses and other commercial and commercial uses within the site. Yeah. Okay.
My thoughts here would not want to duplicate what's already here. So it is complex we're in at the moment. We have
Sure.
an opportunity, we have the college library, but it's also the Gungahlin library. There's a lot of duplicated opportunity here. I would hate to see putting in another thing that's already available in Gungahlin. But we'd be needing to see something that's not in there.
Sure. Okay. So I think that goes back to the work hub idea, which sounds like it's something that's not available at this point. Yeah. Okay. In town centres, not specifically in Canberra, but there are examples throughout Sydney and Melbourne where facilities such as a library and childcare is nestled in the same building as residential. So there's considerations like having separations of access, which is something that we deal with mixed-use facilities as it stands now. So a childcare for a large mixed-use development that's nestled in there, we do require to have separate accesses, separate lifts, that type of thing. So that would all be a consideration that would happen on the site. Sorry, I can't hear you that well. Yeah, okay, that's... So that's CZ5, yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. Ford, okay. Okay, okay. That might be something that we need to do a bit of a sounding on. Yeah, okay, good.
There's also, I would call it apprenticeship training in a specific day. There's a business set up, there's probably 2 or 3 floors, obviously, and they provide all the facilities, training, infrastructure, ICT. We've even got a cafeteria there. So all professionals do is they can come and train on a computer system, come and train on something.
Yeah, okay.
And they hold the training session there. And they basically provide the infrastructure around it. So
okay.
That may help shift some of that sort of effort out to Gungahlin.
Yeah, sure. And I think, yeah, there's linkages there with the growth in Gungahlin, the linkages between the city with light rail, so there might be, yeah, there might be some room for that.
Off-site meeting facility, people from Canberra can come off-site to Gungahlin.
Have a jaunt to Gungahlin, yeah, very good.
At the moment, we don't have POMs, the Canberra Aspirations medical service.
Okay.
There's one in Gungahlin, one in Canberra, Hospital, and one in Calgary, but we don't have anything like that here.
Okay. That would fit under that community use, yeah, absolutely. So that could be done now, effectively. Yeah, okay.
There's a couple of comments. A couple of people have commented independently about mental health type facilities,
okay.
Particularly men's shed, men's emergency accommodation, outpatient rehabilitation, headspace for teenagers. Those types of things would all fit in.
They'd all fit within the community use, yeah. And in terms of men's sheds and being I'm a Gungahlin resident, but I'm not fully across these types of things, but is there a men's shed currently in Gungahlin?
I know there's one at Hall.
Okay.
And then there's one at Kaleen.
Okay. Okay. And outpatient rehab and that type of thing.
Yeah, that was something that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, and headspace.
And headspace for teenagers.
Yep.
And the other one's just coming now. Excellent community links to Uni of Canberra and Childcare Centre, who are very progressive and would be a great inclusion with Child Centre with IT learning focus.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good. Good. Yeah, so it's sort of an arts congregation centre. Okay. So there's nothing like that in Gungahlin at the moment? It's probably, it's likely under a different name, but yeah. Okay, good.
I guess, is there any sort of fundamental concern about the developer saying, well, I'm going to do the community facility, but I want to sort of make the opportunity more profitable by putting residential on top? I get the sense everyone's interested in lots of ideas for the community facility.
But in terms of concerns of having that mixed use, yeah, thank you, Peter. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a sentiment in Gungahlin that we need more jobs, local jobs, more than just retail and fast food. So that everyone doesn't have to get on the light rail. Some people can even come the other direction. So jobs here is something.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. All the light rails coming back are going to be empty.
SME-friendly office space as opposed to large government agency office space.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, the apartment is going to be there anyway.
Not at this, not necessarily. Under the current zoning, we could have, for example, arguable whether Gary, whether a work hub would fall under the community facility frame. Yeah. So I mean, beyond that, a lot of what's been suggested would fit. Whatever. This is being recorded, by the way. So,
If it was an innovation hub or not-for-profit operating a co-working space,
we'd have to
maybe
fit it within one of the definitions.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, really, a lot of the suggestions here would fit under that community hub umbrella. I think when we're talking about work hubs, it sort of moves into the commercial realm. So that's where this discussion sort of leads us. Could we have a mixed use commercial with community on the ground floor, and would that be palatable? And what would the concerns be if we were to do something like that? If we were to have a childcare on the bottom 2 stories and have 2 stories of work hub, would that raise any concerns with anybody here?
What was the original zoning for that land?
Oh, sorry, I couldn't tell who was talking. Sorry, the original it's community facility. So and has been for, well, I think for forever, really.
The developer purchased the option on the basis of the
That's correct. So they have purchased it on that understanding.
the developer wants to explore use of it as a residential facility.
Well, effectively locking in that community use and then exploring other uses that could work with it. And
not an or.
Yeah, it is an and, not an or. It's an as well. Yeah. They are at this. They are, yes.
So
Yeah.
if it was to be approved under other guidelines that probably just mean manipulating the rules in the system, having said yes to your proposal, all those other buildings would then start saying, yes, we're going to have a community facility in the first 2 floors, and then put up 4 or 5 or 6.
And
up to 26 or 28.
No, it's not. We're not able to, on any of these blocks along here, you're not able to go that high. So,
What I'm saying is, if one building...
if one does it, yeah, and that's where I wanted to take this discussion. Is there any concern of that happening site-specific, but on a broader scale, just exploring locking in that community use within an area, but then allowing other uses as well as?
You're saying that the original intent for the land was community use and the original plan was childcare?
The original, there was an approved DA for the site for a rather large childcare that ended up not being viable. So there's now a new provider that has been lined up.
Similar to other childcare centres that are around the town, they're typically 1 or 2 floors anyway.
Yes.
What you're saying is, we're going to put the childcare centre anyway. It's going to have the
It will be a different type of community use. It will be a different type of community use. Yes. Yeah. But that's
This block here, the number 8, the 58, that's the healthcare centre. So that's not vacant, very occupied.
and block 7 is being developed. I understand.
That's 6, 8.
It'd have 6 to 8.
Story,
Yeah, I think 6 to 8 is the limit.
Residential, ground floors. I think it's a childcare centre proposed.
There's a portion of it that's put aside for childcare centre.
Yeah.
The last time I spoke to was Supermarket Pathway.
Yeah.
Downstairs was going to be like commercial, so restaurants and things like that.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised that talking to YMCA, there's actually an oversupply of childcare.
Yeah, so we've done some analysis on it, and there is an oversupply at present, but it's a question of whether a lot of them need rejuvenating, and yeah, that's another discussion.
Just quickly, another one I think
sure.
might have already been mentioned as well is if it was to go to mixed use residential and community, would there be any more restrictions on the community side of things because of
And that's something that would have to be explored. You wouldn't want to curtail any other community uses that you could have on the site. So that would have to be a consideration, absolutely. Yeah.
And there might be some that are okay if we can
Yeah.
no longer. I mean, if it ruled out childcare, then that's a pretty significant.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
it rules out, I don't know, something
Well,
else,
I
it
mean,
might not matter.
yeah. So there might be some community uses that wouldn't be compatible with a residential use, for example. You can see commercial potentially being compatible with just about anything, really, just providing that you manage the entryways and exits from a planning point of view and an architectural point of view. But yeah, that would be an important consideration, to not limit what community uses you could have on the site. Yeah.
There's a few more comments here. I'll
Yeah.
send you a link for this.
Yeah,
I'll go
fantastic.
through them all now.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you could forward them, that would be excellent.
What are the next steps for you?
So the next steps, we've basically want to approach ACLA and effectively have the discussion and continue the discussion, and looking at a consideration of how this might work, what kind of considerations the.
So would this potentially be a request for a scope for planning report?
That's correct. Yeah.
So,
oh, sorry. So yes, sorry. So effectively, the next steps would be a request for a scoping document for a planning report, and that planning report would inform a potential amendment to the territory plan and to the precinct code. So it would go out to public consultation as well, and would obviously be notified to Gungahlin Community Council.
So a change like this would not occur without public consultation.
That's correct.
Prospective change.
That's correct.
So really important. These sort of changes aren't the sort of thing that could occur through a technical amendment
No.
or a quiet document that doesn't come out.
That's correct. Thank you, Gary. Yeah.
So if the community say no to this, it will be stopped.
No. Do you want to talk about no?
Do you want me to talk about consultation?
Yeah. Yep.
I'll talk about the process that would follow here. So Richard, representing his client, would come to the planning authority and ask us to give them the table of contents for an assessment report. What are the matters that we think they would have to assess? And we would look at traffic, we'd look at compatibility with surrounding uses, we'd look at how we make sure that community facility land is not alienated. So we wouldn't want to include residential if it were going to mean that community facility couldn't coexist in that place. We'd then give them the scope of work that they need to go and assess. They'd go and do planning studies, traffic studies, social engineering studies, whatever else is necessary. Bring it back and formally ask us to consider proposing a variation to the territory plan. If we decided, yes, we were comfortable that the work was rigorous enough and it was worth at least proposing the change, we'd then put that to our minister. If he said yes, we'd put it out to the community, a territory plan variation, standard approach, 6-week public consultation, presentations here. Stop hitting the microphone, Gary. Presentations here, probably a review by the planning committee within the assembly. Standard sort of approach. You'd basically follow the same ladder process as the precinct plan refresh will.
The same process
Yeah.
as 2 towers followed.
Uh,
To get up the road.
no, they didn't have a particular territory plan variation. They were within the old provisions.
Prior to the change.
One of the things I would say in trying to coordinate all of this is, if you're thinking about a scope for a planning report, get it in so that we can actually be asking these questions and dealing with it while we're looking at the precinct plan refresh. It would be better in dealing with the community if we did it all in one go and had one discussion. You can still carve it off and say, we like all of that, we don't like that, and give us the arguments and we'll consider it. My initial reaction is I don't like the idea of putting through a territory plan variation to update the precinct plan, and then the first thing we do is put out a proposal to rezone one of the sites that's within it. Would be better to draw that together if we can.
Absolutely. It could be a different process, but Commonwealth, that's why I'm saying they're planning to get one of the federal agencies in Gungahlin.
Yeah.
So do ACT government have any allocated space in Gungahlin to accommodate that?
There are a number of sites that are zoned and able to be built as office accommodation. So up in the office precinct, where we're seeing conversion to residential accommodation at the moment, there is still at least one vacant site that could be secured as an office building. And if all of the others have been built, then the owner of that site's probably in a good position to put it. Oh no, sorry, there are others, but that one as an example.
Yep. Anything that's blue,
Yep.
there you go.
Well, in Gungahlin East, but yep, including undeveloped site up the top.
Most of the existing town centre,
Yeah.
precinct 2B, all of that. And they're huge. They're huge. Huge trucks alone.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you. So with that, thank you very much, Gary. Yeah, so with that, that's our next step. So if there's no other questions, discussion points or talking points, thank you very much for your time, and yeah, look forward to speaking to you again. This is my first time, so look forward to speaking to you again. So thank you very much.
Second man hug of the Richard used to work for me. Well done.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you. All right. Well, we've got a couple of minutes. If there are any other matters people would like to raise, if you haven't contributed to the town centre planning refresh, please have your say. If you don't want to do the survey, you can just send an email to gungahlin@act.gov.au. But you know, the survey is obviously one piece of input. I do want to stress again, only 3 people commented on the most recent DA lodged in that precinct. So if you care about tall buildings, then you need to be responding to the DAs because, as Gary pointed out, a well-articulated argument why they don't meet the criteria is going to make a difference. So are there any other further questions, queries, requests? All right, well, remind you of the Celebrate Gungahlin Festival. The signs are up on the wall, 29th of April. Saturday, 29th of April. So put that in your diary. Make sure you're there.
If you've got a shop front that you'd like to put a Celebrate Gungahlin poster up in, there's a few up on the desk there for you to grab on as well.
Yep. And please feel free to grab some gun smokes as you go. Thanks very much. We'll see you next month.